Okay, good morning, friends, and welcome to the main object big book study of Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm an alcoholic. My name is David, and so wonderful to be here with all of you. And let me do some Zoom roulette, and I am going to ask my friend Karen S. And Karen, would you be so kind as to read the preamble? I'll bring it up on the screen.
Absolutely. Hi, everybody. My name is Karen, and I am an alcoholic. The AA Preamble. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of people who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are not self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety.
Karen, thank you so much. And I'm going to ask everyone now to join me in inviting God into this meeting today by reciting the Serenity Prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Thank you all for that. Uh, so, here at the main object big book study, we are a line by line uh, examination of our big book. And most people know this, but just in case you're new or need a reminder, what we do at this meeting is we start at the very beginning. So we've covered the um, prefaces and the preface and the forwards. Now we're in the doctor's opinion, and what we do when we go line by line is we break the text down into 5 categories: questions, directions and explanations, promises, warnings, and history. And as you can see on the screen, each of those categories, except for history, is connected with a color, and the color is just a highlighter that I have chosen for my own purposes to highlight those categories so that I can helps me understand what what I'm reading, and I think even more importantly, it helps me share that material with other people, with newcomers. And so, just a few other announcements. Our format is what we'll do here is I'll lead us through the text for about the first 25 minutes or so, and then at 7 a.m., what I'll do is invite everybody to, or anybody to share there. If you have any questions, any comments, anything like that, um, we'll open it up at 7, and then in addition, we will keep reading if time allows. In addition to that, um, just so everybody knows, this meeting is being recorded and it will be archived. The recording is the audio only, so we are in alignment with the traditions, and the link, the YouTube link for that archive is in the chat. Um, okay, I think that's where we are. So, the text, where we are right now is we are in the next, we're continuing our exploration of the doctor's opinion. If you're in the fourth edition, the blue and gold fourth edition, we are on Roman numeral page 30, XXX. If you're in the study edition, which I am working from, we're in Roman numeral page 28. And we're in the statement that Dr. Silkworth provided our founders, the longer statement, which finishes out the doctor's opinion. And if you'll recall, I've broken that down into, I think, 5 sections, and we are on section 4, so we are getting near the end of the doctor's opinion. And this section begins with the line, the classification of alcoholics. And I call this section many types, comma, one symptom. And we'll see what that means in a moment. So, jumping in, the classification of alcoholics seems most difficult. And in much detail is outside the scope of this book. Okay, I'm going to pause right there for a second. This is a line that resonated more and more for me the longer I was in AA. The reason being that when I first got to AA, I was full of pain, desperate to get away from the life that I was living, wanting something new, open, teachable, probably the most humble I've ever been in AA because I had a terrific beating from alcohol. And so I think for a while when I encountered this line, it just sort of, as I've said with other lines, glossed over me. I just, I didn't connect. However, the longer I am sober, and what we'll find throughout this section is I'm still not clear if Dr. Silkworth was focusing, when he wrote this section, on the brand new alcoholic, the person who's still hurting, or the more experienced member. And the reason that I'm saying this is that this sentence, the classification of alcoholics seems most difficult and in much detail outside the scope of this book. And why I'm saying this is as I got more time, I started to get a little, I started to analyze things. And I started to analyze things, and my character defects, of course, jumped in there. So I started to analyze not just my sobriety, but your sobriety and your disease and how it was manifesting. And what I found myself often saying was, to myself, of course, and what I found myself often saying is things like, why are they sharing that? What is going on with that person? Oh my word, they need a different type of fellowship. And these were often people, we'll see them talk about these folks. And the reason that today I realized, and I thought I was being insightful and, really accurate and carrying a high standard of sobriety. And isn't that just beautiful? Because in truth, what was happening was my disease was providing color commentary on my program. And what I have found is that the longer I allow my disease to provide color commentary on my program, the greater the chance is that my disease is going to start running my program. And of course, I think you can see where that train will ultimately take me. So this notion of the classification of alcoholics seems most difficult and in much detail is outside the scope of this book. What Dr. Silkworth is saying is there's a lot of different types of us, and our symptoms manifest in different ways. And that's okay. And that is an important distinction for me. Because, of course, I find myself most comfortable and most accepting of those alcoholics who are most like me, or at least the ones that behave in the way according to the unspoken rules I've created for myself and other people about what AA should be and should not be. And we find that, and we'll get into this, he talks basically about 5 or 6 types, depending on how you break it down, and I'll show you that in a second. And so the first type, we're in that second line there. There are, of course, the psychopaths who are emotionally unstable.
Excuse me, David, are these all warnings?
Oh, sorry, I forgot that point. I take it, you could take it as a warning. I highlighted it as direction. And I kept it, thank you, Donna. I kept it as direction because, except for the last sentence in this paragraph, which I double highlighted as direction and a warning. And I kept it as direction because, as someone striving to stay sober, this is, or an explanation, this is critical information that I need in order to effectively share the message. So jumping to the second sentence. There are, of course, the psychopaths who are emotionally unstable. We are all familiar with this type. That sentence there, of course, another one that really didn't mean a lot to me. It felt like a filler sentence for a long time. And today when I read it, when he says, we are all familiar with this type, what he is saying, at least to me, is get over it, David. We've seen this before. AA will survive. Because I want to go like, oh my God, if they keep behaving this way, AA is just, I won't be able to stay sober, nor will anyone else. We are all familiar with this type. They are always, quote, going on the wagon for keeps. They are overly remorseful and make many resolutions, but never a decision. And that last sentence that I just read, that's also, like I said, double highlighted for me, direction and warning. And many promises, never a decision. And what that means is that they talk, these are the alcoholics that talk a lot about how they now understand, how they now see it, how they now get it. However, never a decision means that their underlying course of action does not change. And why I take this as a warning is for myself as well. I can have tons of insight about this disease, but is it really informing a different course of action? And of course, something I did not connect for a long time is that I think this word decision connects me right back to the third step, which is all about making a decision, which of course is a springboard or a diving board into the action. Because remember, it says this step will have little impact unless immediately followed by a rigorous course of action. So you could say that those people who are making a lot of statements about insight and awareness are doing so, but they're perhaps not engaging in working the steps. So anyway, moving forward, so that's the first type, okay? The emotionally unstable psychopath. The second type is there, and this is these next 3 sentences I have in green as direction/explanation. There is the type of man who is unwilling to admit he cannot take a drink. He plans various ways of drinking. He changes his brand or his environment. And over the years, I have sponsored people like that. And what I find is that very frequently, these are individuals who are who arrive at Alcoholics Anonymous motivated to stop the cycle of trouble, but have difficulty or challenges internalizing the nature of the internal nature or the spiritual nature of the disease. So that is the second type. The third type, and I just want to say, if it sounds like I am being critical of fellow alcoholics, I apologize, because that is certainly not my intent. I am, especially when we get to sort of the bottom of this explanation, because Dr. Silkworth really drives home what my obligation is to all of these individuals, because I still have the same level of obligation to all of these individuals, and an obligation to work the steps in such a way that their quote-unquote issue or their symptoms do not become an issue for me. So anyway, the third type. There is the type, and I have this sentence highlighted, double highlighted in green and pink, direction and warning. There is the type who always believes that after being entirely free from alcohol for a period of time, he can take a drink without danger. And why I have that double highlighted is because I've been sober a while. And what that tells me is that I am susceptible to that. And so what I want to be on guard against is that I don't find myself developing that same mindset. The thing that's important about that is that while I've never got caught up in that thinking to an extent, those thoughts cross my mind. And occasionally, like little blips, little text messages from my disease. And what I find is that the underlying motivator of that type of thinking, like I've been sober a while, I think I can drink now, is that the underlying motivator, for me anyway, is that the solution to this disease is not a spiritual remedy. It's mental insight. It is strategy. It is awareness, self-awareness. Like I understand, we've seen this, it's in the book, and we've heard alcoholics say this a number of times, or at least I have. I understand now. I was young when I was drinking. I'm older and more mature now. I could handle it better. So that's why I have that as a warning. So that's the third type, who's been free of alcohol for a while. Now we go on to the fourth type, which takes us to the end of the paragraph, and I have this all in green. There is the manic depressive type, who is perhaps the least understood by his friends, and about whom a whole chapter could be written. That fourth type are when they're talking about the manic depressive type, and these are the people who manic depression is sometimes referred to as bipolar disease. It is those people who will either they tend to be in one of two modes. They tend to, when they are present at meetings, they tend to maybe dominate the conversation, or be very demonstrative when they speak, and they may be seeking a lot of attention and seem very engaged, and then they flip to a place where they just disappear. You don't see them until they show back up again. And the important thing here is that where it says they are the least understood by his friends, and about whom a whole chapter can be written. See, the point that Dr. Silkworth is making in all of this is that each one of these individuals, with their symptoms that I may find disruptive or unsavory or inappropriate, or quote unquote not alcoholism, or quote unquote problems other than alcohol, these people are all equally valid members of this fellowship. And he's going to tell me why in a moment. And what I have found over the years is that it is only through the working of the steps that I am able to eradicate the character defects that separate me from those people. I can't will I've tried it. I can't will my way into being okay with their behavior. In order to be okay, and it's not just about being okay with their behavior, it's about being of maximum service to these people, these individuals. And so we move on to the next paragraph, which is in green. Then there are types entirely normal in every respect except the effect that alcohol has upon them. They are often able, intelligent, friendly people. Or in how David would define that, they are the alcoholics who behave the right way. They are, what I say, the people who actually belong here. And the next paragraph, well, let's just start with the next sentence. That's, for me, that's all in pink. That is a warning. All these and many others, and right, I'm going to pause right there. He's given us 5 categories. All these and many others. What he's saying right there is that, okay, I've given you 5 examples. There are many others. All these and many others have one symptom in common. They cannot start drinking without developing the phenomenon of craving. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the linchpin that binds me to those individuals. That fact right there, that's what matters. They cannot stop drinking without developing the phenomenon of craving. And if I'm sober today and working the steps, what the program tells me is that I have a solution that can be helpful to them, even if their behavior falls into one of those categories that I sometimes take issue with. They cannot take a drink without developing the phenomenon of craving. And what we're going to see here in that statement and through the rest of this paragraph is perhaps the most important information that I can convey to a newcomer, to someone who is confused about the nature of their disease. Because remember what Dr. Silkworth ultimately said to Bill W. Bill, stop preaching at them and hit them with the hard medical facts. What follows in this paragraph are those hard medical facts. So let's see what the doctor says. The rest, by the way, the next two sentences I have double highlighted as direction and warning. That first sentence is a warning. I guess you could say that's also direction. So, however, seriously, I'm not trying to confuse the issue. So I have it as warning, the first sentence, but it could be both. This phenomenon, as we have suggested, may be the manifestation of an allergy, which differentiates these people and sets them apart as a distinct entity. What I did for that, I wanted to make sure I understood the word allergy, because when I think of allergy, I think of like hay fever, or I'm allergic to strawberries or something like that. And I thought, well, when I drank, I didn't start sneezing. I didn't become inflamed, any of that. But I went to the dictionary and I looked up the word allergy, which I will, which I will share with you. And let me enlarge this. You might see it there on your screen. Okay, here's what the dictionary says about allergy. Altered bodily reactivity, such as hypersensitivity to an antigen, that just means a substance, in response to a first exposure. And when we think about that, and we talk about we can't take alcohol into our body without developing the phenomenon of craving, that exactly fits this definition of allergy. And that's just from Webster's.com. Interestingly, and I don't want to make too much of this, but I think I mentioned it, I recently purchased I went on eBay and I found this big book here is a 1939 edition of Webster's Dictionary. And the reason that I found that, or reason I purchased that, is it was recommended to me because a lot of the words in the big book, when they were written, they meant something different than what they mean today. So in order to discover what the definition was at the time that the book was written, which was 1939, it helps to have a 1939 dictionary. So you can get them on eBay. I think I paid like $35 for this. So anyway, interestingly, allergy was not in the dictionary, which I would assume you would find in a dictionary today. So maybe what that tells me is that, or what it suggests is that maybe it was not a common word back at the time. And it's gotten more common over the years. But the more important point, moving on, is that this sentence, and I'll just finish up the paragraph and then we'll open it up. It's a manifestation of an allergy which differentiates these people and sets them apart as a distinct entity. That right there, as I said, is the thing that binds me to every person who comes into this room seeking help. And according to Dr. Silkworth, when he talked to Bill, that is perhaps the most important thing that I need to convey to individuals, along with what we see in the rest of this paragraph. The next sentence, I also have double highlighted. Warning and direction. It has never been, by any treatment with which we are familiar, permanently eradicated. We're not going to get away from this. We are always an alcoholic. And the next sentence, you could again have it double highlighted. I just have it single highlighted as a direction explanation. The only, which is perhaps, I would say, the number one primary piece of direction I get from Alcoholics Anonymous, the only relief we have to suggest is entire abstinence. And we could talk a whole meeting about that sentence alone. But I'm just going to take that phrase or that sentence as self-evident. I think we all understand why they are saying that. So it's the most important. I see that as the most important information that I can convey to a newcomer. And as a suffering alcoholic myself, that information is what I need to keep front and center, along with the fact that the only thing that can save me from that is a spiritual remedy, an act of providence, like they say in the first step. So with that, I've gone a little over, but I want to open up the meeting now. If there are any questions or comments or thoughts on what we've read so far, yes, Miss Juanita, please go right ahead.
Hi, David. Hi, family. How's everyone? Thank you so much, David. And as you were talking, I was reading. First thing I thought about, I was describing how I felt. And when I read this, because I didn't think I was an alcoholic, I had to put down a description of who I was and what I felt and why I felt it and didn't know why. And I hadn't drank. See, I didn't drink for a long time, and everything that's in this book, direction of warnings and disease of my personality, my feelings, my actions, and my thinking at 4 years old up to 13 was like, why am I here and why do I feel so empty and lost? And I don't know whether I was a manic depression. I went to 3 psychiatrists. They never said it. But my mental disconnection to life was not real. I mean, I had to act like my neighbor felt. If my neighbor smiled, I had to make sure I smiled, because my mother said, you don't walk around with a frown and you don't let nobody know your business. But the way I thought, the way I felt, and the way I acted, I hadn't drank. So this thing, when I read this, I'm like, wow, I wasn't drinking when I felt that. But then when I drank, some of that went away. And then after a while, it'll come back when the drinking wears off. So when it talked about, you said an allergy also, I didn't think that, but I also know today that that's what I'm describing. That's what this book is describing to me, how unstable and unemotional I am when it comes to feelings and connection. And sometimes I feel that way. I haven't felt that way since it's been a good 15 years, I haven't felt that lost emptiness anymore. I don't feel that. But I feel a disconnect when it comes to my thinking. And I'm going to tell you, and I'm going to say this and shut up. My daughter having a procedure done, and she wants me to come down, but she's been snapping at me. And I'm telling you, it's like she dismissed me. And I'm afraid to drive down to Virginia 3.5 hours and stay in a 1-bedroom apartment with this woman. And she's 52 years old today, and her go off on me. And then I'm like, I'm going to jump in my car and come back home. So I'm glad we did this, because I'm going to pray more, because I know she needs me to be there. But I'm going to tell you, she is my daughter, and I know I see me, but I don't think she sees her, because she's total denial. What are you talking about? Why do you know? And the more you explain this, I put here for me the description of my feelings and my dis-ease. When they said disease, that's my dis-ease in me. So thank you. And I'm so glad I got this program, and it's a we thing and not an I. And I'm so glad I'm not, like I always say, I'm slow, because you said it took you a while to get it. It took me a while to get it. I'm still getting it and understanding it. Thank you for allowing me to share.
Thank you, Juanita. Yes, hello, Jackie. Yes, please.
Hey, family. I first of all, thank you so very much. I'm really enjoying this. Sometimes my little clinical hat come off and on, but this helps me understand. So I'm a really low bottom drunk. And when I was first introduced to these classifications of the alcoholic, I was looking for the depressing kind, one that was the making the remorse, never making a decision. I think that was the third one. But the thing is, the last one, like you said, there are these type entirely normal in every respect, except in the effect alcohol has upon them. So that really helped me, because I just really had so much self-hatred. And, I mean, I was the best daughter I could possibly be. And everyone thought I was not going to live this experience out. There was a lot of near-death experiences, and it created a lot of self-conflicting emotions for me, because I had never come to Alcoholics Anonymous. I didn't know about, the threefold, the allergy, the thinking that precedes the drinking, that Dr. Silkworth will eventually talk about. But it was always my thinking. There's chapters. I'm not going to go too far off the topic, but I could have years of sobriety, and the thinking will get me back to the drinking. And just this close, I just want to say, I had gone in and out of detox a lot, and come out and I would instinctively drink again. So yeah, I would see all of these classifications, the traits, the alcoholic tendencies, these personalities, these classifications manifest in me, all of them. But when you described the allergy, I looked it up, and I saw my daughter have an allergy to seafood, and I saw her whole face blow up. Well, that's how my alcoholism was. We will, carry her off into ER, and they would treat her, and the physical symptoms will go away. But she will always have a reaction to seafood. So it says a damaged immune response by the body to sustain, especially pulling for a particular food. It talks about a food, but it also talks about the hypersensitive reaction. And that's really how alcohol affected me. It just would have this, it would have my mind and my body, and I like the phenomenon. It was beyond my mental control. I couldn't fix it. I couldn't change it. So I would go, just like my daughter, into ER. I would go to a psychiatric institute, and I would come out there and I would drink again, because I didn't have the treatment that you guys are providing today. I didn't have any knowledge about the program as it's outlined. And I had never been here. None of my family members. I'm third generation alcoholic. And they thought I was a really strong person. I had been. but this, thank you.
You're welcome, Jackie. Okay, I think what I'm going to do is we only have this section ends at the bottom of the page. So I think we have the time. We have about 4 minutes. And so I'm going to move onward. And this next section here, or this next paragraph rather, excuse me, I have double highlighted as both warning and direction. First sentence refers back to the last sentence of the previous paragraph, which states that the only relief we have is to suggest entire abstinence. Okay, so keeping that in mind, it says, this immediately precipitates us into a seething cauldron of debate. This suggestion of absolute abstinence. You see what I'm saying? I still have, this is something that I still encounter to this day. I have sponsored people who, throughout the years, some of them have been adamant that it was, and we may have seen it, things such as near beer, which does contain alcohol, even things such as going to church, Holy Communion, and drinking the wine at communion, and so things such as that. I at one point in the last several years, I had a conversation with a gentleman who was asking me to sponsor him, but he wanted me to know that in addition, he was doing, in order to go to sleep at night, he was ingesting marijuana gummy bears. And and we could get into whether that's permissible or not permissible. But what I came back to after seeking some direction, I came back to, it's quite simply, throughout my sobriety, I follow the doctor's opinion, and the doctor's opinion says absolute abstinence. And so that reference and that connection to the doctor's opinion really helps me step out of the debate or the judgment. Much has been written pro and con, but among physicians, the general opinion seems to be that most chronic alcoholics are doomed. And again, I think this is some of these. I would say these two paragraphs are the most important information that we can convey to that fellow sufferer, that newcomer. And with that, we come to the end of the 4th section. So next week, what we will do is my hope is we will finish up the doctor's opinion with the next section, which is section 5, which is, I call the power of this book. And you will see that he mentions that through at least 2 examples. And that section 5, carries us to the end of the doctor's opinion. So hopefully, excuse me, next week we will finish up the doctor's opinion. And